Here's a story about being an extremely neurodivergent adult in the workplace from when I was working on Supernatural. I was a producer on the show from seasons 11 through 15, end of the show, responsible for all things monsters. Anytime something horrible happened to somebody, that was my responsibility. It's beginning to end, budgeting, scheduling, design, crewing, and time management and scheduling throughout the shoot. That's what I did on this show in a nutshell. When we have a script that is ready to shoot and we have reached that point in the production schedule, we all sit down, heads of department, for the prep meeting and talk through the script and figure out how do we translate words on a page into something that you can actually point a camera at. It took me a while to figure out that some people, their approach is just kind of get through that meeting as quickly as possible, as opposed to my approach, which is let's make sure that everybody is on the same page regarding the things that need to get talked about. Hyperlexic neurodivergent ADHD, significant autistic features. You know how this is going to go, right? This was by far the most neurodivergent friendly workplace I have ever encountered. Downright encouraging and supportive. A few folks just wanted to get on with their day. Unfortunately, that lent itself to expressions that I found unpleasant. One person would go into the meeting room early and leave notes on my chair along the lines of, just shut up, or no one wants to hear you talk. The second I said anything to anybody, that stopped. Again, amazingly supportive environment, but still, being the hyperlexic neurodivergent person in a room of 20, it feels intense. Before prep for this particular episode, we were alerted that there were going to be some executives coming by, and not just the parent network, but the owner of the parent networks. And they were going to sit down on this prep meeting. In addition, all of our executive producers were going to be present, including the ones that usually teleconferenced in from LA. So no pressure, right? Now, a couple of things to bear in mind. Just by nature of kind of my domain of responsibility on the show, the things that I need to discuss are, by their nature, really unpleasant. I understand that a lot of other people have difficulty discussing them in a detached way. For me, it's not an issue, but I absolutely understand that that's a me thing. I've been working really, really hard to try to find a different balance between kind of the level of detail that I need to discuss things in to make sure that I'm actually pushing a project in the right direction versus other people's thresholds of comfort, both with how long the meeting is going and also just how detailed I'm getting regarding what I'm discussing. We're about 25 minutes into this meeting. We've got our usual 20, plus we've got about 10 other people at this meeting from the varying networks. So far, I've done a pretty good job of mostly, yep, okay, yes, we'll do that. No problem. Very succinct. Not a lot of discussion required. Then we come to a point in the script, something horrible that we've never done happens in the script. There's a pause. The director, who I've worked with before, stares at me. The first assistant director for the episode tilts his head, staring at me, because this would be the point where I would chime in. And I'm trying not to, because one, it's an intensely horrible scene. And two, the director had asked very pointedly for medical details about what would this play out like in reality. Then the art director stares at me. Then the production designer. Then wardrobe. Straight down the line. Every head, turn, 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 turn. And the people who have never been in one of these meetings before, they have no idea what's going on. But my goodness, 19 people are staring at this one person. We should too, right? So this felt like an eternity. It was probably like 3 seconds. Then one of the executive producers chimes in with, well? So I stopped fighting it. Well, in this specific set of circumstances, assuming that you missed this organ, that organ, and that organ, and that the pressure keeps hemostasis within the wound, and that the intruding object does not actually move in any way, shape, or form, they could probably manage to survive for X amount of time, as long as they're not trying to talk, and they probably don't have air capacity to actually deliver a line. At this point, there's too much compression on the diaphragm. Like, you get the idea. And then there's another pause, which was probably not even a second, but it felt like forever. And from the back of the room, another EP says, "Thank you, creepiest guy in the room." Then the weirdest thing happened. Everybody in the room let out a sigh of relief, myself included. This was the first time I'd been there for about 2 years at this point, that anyone had kind of openly acknowledged, this guy's different. And sometimes in ways that make us uncomfortable. And at the same time, not only was me being different not necessarily a problem, in this particular scenario, they're relying on it. Things changed after that. The next episode, one of the heads of department, who knew that ancient languages is another interest of mine, approached me with a bit of script and said, "Now, how would you pronounce this?" Somebody else asked me if I could give them some help in correctly spacing characters for Aramaic. They later asked me for help with some Futhark. This idea of this guy is weird and he just kind of knows a lot of stuff suddenly became okay. And that moment kind of stuck. And for me, that was more valuable than any of the statues we got along the way. It really meant a lot.